Welcome in, everyone.
Hello, everybody.
This is Everything Sucks, Let's Fix It, episode 18? 17?
19?
We have to get that right, don't we?
Yeah, we do have to get that right.
It's 19.
It is 19.
It's episode 19. Episode 19. My name is Ben Mayer.
My name is Anthony Buono.
Today is October 6th, 2023. We're a little late.
Yeah, this has been a shitty week for the both of us, man. We have been sick and coughing and phlegmy.
Yeah.
So if our voices sound sexier than normal, that's why.
That's why.
That's why.
That's why. Fortunately, in this period of time, Anthony has done an unprecedented amount of work for this podcast.
This is unprecedented. I took like 2 days off work to recover. And then while I was taking that time off work, I was like, you know what? Let's just, read a lot. And so I made a shit ton of notes on current events. And it got to like 21 pages of like single space, 10.5 font.
It's insane.
Yeah.
I'm going to sound like a fucking idiot on this podcast in comparison, but I'm excited. So...
Uh-oh.
Should we start?
Yeah, let's start.
So now we're going to talk about the extension of government funding.
I've gotten too good at this, is what it is.
to prevent the shutdown.
So Kevin McCarthy passes the continuing resolution with 300 and something Democrat votes. 300 and something votes, and it is passed with majority Democrats. Mm-hmm. It is a majority Democrat bill that passes. There's no Ukraine aid in it. A couple hours after this passes, McCarthy makes a promise to other moderate Republicans that a standalone bill for Ukraine aid will be coming to the floor. Mm-hmm. And the Senate Republicans apparently already knew this. Senate Democrats apparently already knew this. And the Biden administration was suggestedly already privy to this information. Mm. So this caused an uproar in the Republican Party. Not just were the Republican Party were some members of the Republican Party angry at McCarthy for even passing the continuing resolution. Republicans were angry because now they thought McCarthy made a backdoor deal with Joe Biden and Hakeem Jeffries to undermine the Republican caucus and fund Ukraine when our caucus doesn't want to do it. Mm-hmm. So now McCarthy's in this terrible position. And you have Matt Gaetz, America's #1 anarchist, decides he's going to put up a motion to vacate the chair. This is unheard of. The last time this happened in American history was in 1910. I knew his name 2 days ago. I don't remember his name anymore. But in 1910, the Speaker of the House was a motion to vacate was pushed, and he was not vacated. Kevin McCarthy was now in a position that hasn't happened in over 100 years. Okay, so McCarthy worked really.
Damn, that's tough.
I know. McCarthy worked really hard to delay the vote, but Democrats weren't having it. Democrats were not having it. Democrats worked to not delay the vote, and 11 Republicans also refused to delay the vote. When the vote came down to vacate McCarthy, the final vote was 216 to vacate, 210 to not vacate. 208 Democrats and 8 Republicans to vacate. This is insane. This is the first time in American history that a Speaker of the House has ever been vacated from the chair. This is the first time ever. And it shows McCarthy's absolute weakness of a leader, and it shows that the Republican Party has gone batshit.
Yeah.
Batshit.
Yeah.
This is absolutely insane. I want to call out the 8 Republicans who voted to out McCarthy. Andy Biggs of Arizona, Ken Buck of Colorado, Tim Burchett of Tennessee, thank you, Eli Crane of Arizona, Matt Gaetz of Florida, Nancy Mace of South Carolina, that's crazy, and Matt Rosendale. Dude, this Matt Rosendale guy is insane to me. He is in a hyper-competitive Senate race right now against incumbent Senator John Tester from Montana, and he's voting like he's from Arkansas.
Yeah,
I'm shocked that he did this. Republicans in the Senate, Tom Cotton, a Republican senator from Arkansas, actually said that Matt Rosendale should resign and would never be a senator in the United States.
Wow.
He should be disgraced. The Republican senators have said that about him. Insane, dude. And
that
now he's running
wild.
for the Senate. Just unbelievable. So what was your reaction when the vote came down that McCarthy was gone?
Honestly, I was like, Anthony has called this exactly.
I did, right?
Yes. This is precisely the discussion we had. You were like, McCarthy doesn't make it out of this. There's no way. And you knew you had called out that Gates had left a motion to vacate the chair in the bathroom, and it happens, and it just kind of plays out exactly right. So I'm just not surprised. I'm more, of course, like we always are on the show, I'm more interested in what happens next.
Right. So what happens next is what's really interesting to me, because there's already a lot of developments, and this is happening in real time. Keep in mind, this is October 6th. I imagine when we post this video, let's let it refocus, because you coughing just totally messed up the whole. Okay, good. God, you're so selfish.
Yeah.
When I cough, make sure it doesn't do that too.
Okay.
Yeah, we're both so sick, guys. This sucks. So Democrats did not bail out McCarthy. Initially, Kevin McCarthy was so shocked. He was like, how could the Democrats not save me? How could this happen? Where is their belief in the institution? Up your ass, Kevin McCarthy. Fucking get your head out of your ass. Okay? Why would the Democrats uphold you for absolutely no concessions?
Yeah.
Kevin McCarthy was on record saying he would give 0 concessions to Democrats. Why would the Democrats just fold to you for nothing? If you wanted a bipartisan solution, there was one on the table. The Problem Solvers Caucus, which is made up of Democrats and Republicans, the Democrats in the Problem Solvers Caucus actually proposed to uphold McCarthy. It said, we will save you. Kevin McCarthy, we will save you if you do a power sharing agreement with the Democrats. If you give us more power over the rules of the House, we will uphold you. And he said no.
He was in a losing situation no matter what. Obviously, that would be a massive concession from him. But I'm confused. How do you look at that and then say, oh, no, I'd rather lose the speakership?
Right, because that's insanity to me.
Well, I guess he was going to lose the speakership come 2025 anyways. Right?
That's fair.
If he did side with Democrats, right, then I don't, and maybe he's still thinking, oh, if Trump gets in office, then I've completely betrayed him and I've lost his alliance.
Yeah, there's actually no way that he continues Speaker of the House into 2025 after that.
But he could have gotten a year and a half.
Right, he could have gotten another year and a half out of it. He could have upheld the institution that he cares so much about.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So he's so mad, and progressives have gone on TV and have made really the best case that you could have, saying, why would we uphold Kevin McCarthy? They've gone right into it, head on. Why would we do this? It's not this placating bullshitting about going around. They said it straight. We're not doing anything if you don't do anything for me.
Yeah.
There's no reason.
Which I do really appreciate.
I really do. I appreciate them working hard at it. I appreciate that. Even the Problem Solvers Caucus, these are centrist Democrats that did not fold and said, listen, we're not doing it unless you do a power sharing agreement. I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
Apparently, Kevin McCarthy didn't even reach out directly to the Blue Dog Caucus. The Blue Dog Caucus are the most conservative Democrats in the House. Kevin, why did you not reach out to the Blue Dogs? It's because you didn't want to win. I don't think he even wanted to win.
He just wanted the job to be over.
I think he wanted the job to as a leader under Republican leadership, or not at all.
Okay.
I don't think he wanted to be this, this middle road guy. He didn't want it. He's like
the dog to just be kicked by the Democrats over and over again.
Because that means that you're unpopular from everybody. The Democrats hate you. The Republicans are going to hate you. You have absolutely no political future.
Yeah.
So will McCarthy seek the speakership again? He has said no. Thank God. It would have been embarrassing if he did.
Yeah.
So now it looks like there's 2 frontrunners, Jim Jordan and Steve Scalise. For a brief moment, a lot of congressmen were endorsing Trump to become Speaker of the House, and Trump actually publicly expressed interest in becoming Speaker of the House, but Trump bailed on that pretty quick, and it looks like he's already leaning towards endorsing Jim Jordan.
He did earlier today.
He did?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So he endorses Jim Jordan. Jim Jordan is a hardcore Freedom Caucus guy, big Tea Party movement person.
Scalise is super far right as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
But Steve Scalise is in the umbrella of the McCarthy brand.
Okay.
He's like McCarthy's secondhand man.
Okay.
But he is definitely far right. In 2002, he was going to KKK meetings. So he's definitely far right.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Yeah.
But he is like under the umbrella of too moderate for the far right.
Okay. And yet You think so? I don't know, because Gates specifically said he thinks Scalise would make a fantastic speaker in an interview after McCarthy was ousted. So I feel like Scalise could bridge that gap.
If he can bridge that gap, that would be very impressive. But I think Gates would lean more towards justice. But I do think Scalise has a lot of broader appeal than I'm leading on. I think that's fair.
Well, my question is, do either of these, like, why didn't Jordan win before?
He didn't want it.
He ran for it, though.
No,
he was
didn't.
in some of those early votes.
He was in the votes, but he specifically told people not to vote for him.
Okay.
He doesn't want it.
Okay. I mean, but he wants it now. Or he's okay with having it now.
I think he thinks he's the only person who could bridge the gap, and he is needed at the moment.
Okay. It's really, I mean...
He likes his place on the Judiciary Committee.
Are there 5 Republicans close enough to center that would be actually upset with Jim Jordan? Because Jordan is like frighteningly right.
I mean, he's as right as they come. He's the Freedom Caucus's,
chief shill.
Exactly. So I don't think there are, to be honest.
I mean, there's Liz Cheney.
Liz Cheney's not in the House anymore.
Oh, okay.
I mean, there just isn't that coalition.
They would have been better off just nominating a further right speaker to begin with.
Probably.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I don't think that any speaker would actually be successful because Jim Jordan has already told 2 things to different people. Jim Jordan has apparently told Republican senators that he would put a vote up for Ukraine aid, but he's also already told congressional congressmen in the Republican caucus that he's not going to put up a vote for Ukraine aid. So he's already caught. It's being a speaker is an impossible situation in the current Republican Party. It's literally impossible.
Yeah.
All because of Ukraine? Are we really arguing about 0.3% of our GDP? But it's even less because the continued funding would only be $20 billion.
Or even 6 was in the Senate bill.
Right. 6 was in the Senate bill. Nothing. That's what we're arguing about. That's what we're going to shut the government down over. I mean,
it's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. It's virtue signaling.
Yeah.
It's bullshit. It doesn't mean anything. They're just playing at your heartstrings to make you think that, people don't care about Americans at home. They only care about people abroad. It's just not true, guys. Yeah. It's not true at all. I think it's crazy that McCarthy was vacated. I really do. I know I predicted it, but that doesn't mean I'm not surprised. It's the first time in American history. And when the vote happened, I wasn't happy because this does mean that we are at a different level of dysfunction. What happens in 45 days?
Yeah, that's the real question.
Right.
Now.
What happens in 45 days if we don't have a speaker in the House yet?
Well, we need to.
Right.
I don't expect that to be the case.
I hope not, but I don't think that Republicans can get their ducks in a row. I don't know if they can.
Before, I mean, I don't know. I feel like Scalise will go through.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'll be hopeful with you.
Okay. Who's going to vote against him in the Republican caucus? That's my question.
I don't know. I mean, that's fair, but like what's going to happen? I guess they'll do a vote internally. Jim Jordan or Scalise.
Yep.
Whoever wins that vote, it'll go to the floor and they'll put him up as speaker.
Yeah, I guess the problem is that Gates and co will prefer Jordan.
Yeah.
So they won't all be aligned on that to begin with.
Right. They won't be aligned to begin with. Do they align afterwards?
Yeah.
And go into the speaker vote as a united front?
Yeah. How quickly can they align?
Right. There were some ideas floated of doing a live debate on national TV between Jordan and Scalise. I'm so glad they're not doing that.
Yeah.
That would have been a nightmare. Okay.
Okay. I'm still worried about our focus.
Are you?
Are you sure we're okay?
I'm almost positive, dude.
Okay. I literally can't see it. So I'm
You
not
really
sure.
can't see it?
I can't tell whether we're focused. No, my eyes aren't good enough.
I really think we are. You want to check?
How? If we stand up, won't that fuck it? So don't we just have to go off blind faith?
I think we're fine, I promise.
Okay.
I promise you. All right, next topic. Dianne Feinstein has died. At 90 years old, she has passed away. Crazy. But now this opens the door for what's his name?
Gavin Newsom.
Gavin Newsom. I almost called him Kevin Newsom. Dude, you know I'm sick when I'm forgetting Gavin Newsom's name.
Yeah.
Insane.
Throws in the token cough to make sure you know he's sick. Ooh. Do you have water in there?
I do. Oh my God. Dude.
So, Gavin Newsom nominated Laphonza Butler to take Feinstein's seat. he had already promised to nominate a black woman and to nominate someone who would not be interested in seeking re-election, which I think is really interesting and kind of a big, like a good guy move.
Yeah.
Right? Because he didn't want to give an advantage to anyone who's already announced that they're running for the seat in 2024.
Right. Yeah. Then he went back on that and then said he wouldn't be mad if Laphonza Butler runs for re-election.
Oh, I mean, I think that's different though.
Oh,
right,
okay.
because there are people who've already thrown their hat into the ring for that seat. Adam Schiff being one of them. I think it's different to be like she can run for it now, but it's not like someone who already was in the ring. I mean, I think it would have been weird for him to come out and say, "Oh, she better not run for re-election."
That's
like
true.
Even though I just put her in the seat. No, absolutely not.
That's fair. That's fair. I didn't think about it like that.
So yeah, Laphonza Butler. I know very little about her, honestly. She's the president of Emily's List.
That is a big fundraising apparatus for the Democratic Party and for abortion rights.
Yeah.
She's been a big fundraising juggernaut, and she has also in the past been a labor leader. She was the president of California's branch of the SEIU, and was really leading the charge for the $15 minimum wage. Now, yes, in her past, she has been pro-union, and she has been the president of a union. So all of that initially makes me think, oh, wow, Gavin Newsom, good job putting a labor leader at the forefront of national politics right when labor is having a moment, right? Well, since she has not been president of SEIU, she's done some things that are very, 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 very anti-labor. She has been a consultant for Uber. And at this time, Uber was working with other gig companies like Airbnb to squash a California Democrat-led bill that would make gig workers classified as employees, giving them the full employee benefits that is currently not offered to independent contractors. So she was on the forefront pushing against that.
Okay.
It's hard for me because SEIU has come out and they've said, thank you so much for nominating Laphonza Butler. And I want to, trust that the unions know what they're doing. But then I see headlines like that as she's working with Uber to quash pro-worker legislation. And I'm like, I can't get a read on her.
Yeah, I do wonder if is she a consultant running her own business, choosing the clients and the projects that she gets? Or is she an employee? Is she working for some kind of larger consulting company, right? Because in that way, I don't really have a problem with her working for Uber or an Airbnb because it just means she was doing her job and apparently doing it well. And I'm okay with a show of competence.
Okay.
Right? And it means that if she's in the Senate expressing her own views and being a leader for these movements, which SEIU's support of her might be representative of, then I'm happy with it.
I think I like your mindset. I do think that when someone is in such a massive position of power, I would like them to live their values a little bit more and go for a job that doesn't put them in that position. But I don't know enough about her background to say that she is truly in that position to say, oh, screw it, I'm going to, go be work for a nonprofit making $30,000 a year. I don't know enough about her life to make that call.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
But no, I do think you're right. Competence is key. So if her heart truly is in the labor movement, which I think it is, president of SEIU, how do you get to be the president of SEIU without being pro-labor, right? So I don't know. It's just hard. But Gavin Newsom, I want to talk about Gavin Newsom's relationship to labor because unless you found anything else about Laphonza Butler, interject.
Go ahead.
So Gavin Newsom has a weird relationship with labor at the moment. He vetoed a bill last Saturday that would have granted workers on strike unemployment benefits. This was passed by the Democrat House of California and the Democrat Senate of California. And then Gavin Newsom vetoed it. That's hard.
Yeah.
Gavin Newsom's breaking with the whole of the Democratic Party, and he's choosing to not expand unemployment benefits to striking workers. This legislation was pushed by labor unions, the SEIU included, right? The California Labor Federation and the Democrats. So now this is a quote from the California Labor Federation. This veto tips the scales further in favor of corporations and CEOs and punishes workers who exercise their fundamental right to strike. At a time when the public support of unions and strikes are at an all-time high, this veto is out of step with American values. I think she's right on the money. I definitely think Gavin's position here is out of step with where America currently is. Unions have a high approval rating. They approve of the United Auto Workers strike. So this is definitely out of step. But I want to give Gavin a little bit of the benefit of the doubt and kind of talk about why he did this. Because it's not because he's anti-striking worker, because that's not true. But I want to give his reasoning. So first of all, the legislation would have allowed striking workers 2 weeks, striking workers for at least 2 weeks to receive unemployment benefits, such as checks of $450 a week. So why would he veto this? This is why. California's unemployment benefits are supported by the Unemployment Insurance Trust Fund, which as of late, not even as of late, for a long time has been running a deficit, hasn't been taking in enough money. The state actually had to borrow money from the federal government after the trust had run out of money previously. Currently, the state's Unemployment Insurance Trust Fund is already $18 billion in debt, and if he passed this legislation, it would have increased it $2 billion more in debt. That's his reasoning.
I'm with Newsom.
I knew you would be, and I don't know. I don't think I'm that anti-Newsom on this. I don't think I'm that against it.
Well, here's where I'm at. Unions already know that they have to have strike funds, that they have to be able to support their workers.
Yeah.
Right? This is one of those things where it's like, it doesn't make sense to be infinitely liberal. It doesn't make sense to say the government has infinite money and it can do absolutely everything we want all the time.
Especially on a state level when the state does not control its own currency, right?
Exactly. Unions know that they have to create strike funds and provide for their workers in the cases of those strikes. And it's done it successfully. We just saw it with the writer's strike, right? They held out long enough to get concessions on almost everything that the union members wanted. The actors are about to do the same thing. The UAW is doing the same thing.
Yep.
I think this is one where, okay, if the trust fund is already $18 billion in debt, it's starting to make more sense to not add additional billions to that number.
Yeah, and I don't think that I also don't think it's like a well-written piece of legislation. If you want to have, okay, the union had issues raising a strike fund and can appeal on behalf of their workers for unemployment benefits, that's a different story, and that's something I could be on board with. But flat out saying that unemployed workers who are getting equal amount of wages from their strike fund will also get unemployment benefits.
No.
That's a bad policy,
Makes no
guys.
sense.
That's just a bad policy.
Yeah.
That's a bad move.
Exactly.
That's dumb. You know, that's like, that almost makes me feel like a lot of the Democrats who passed this were kind of virtue signaling pro-labor when it's like, no, hold on, guys. That's actually a dumb move.
Yes.
What are we going to do here? We're going to like 1.5 times the wages of workers who go on strike.
Totally.
I don't know if that's a good idea.
No. We were talking, I think maybe off camera, about how virtue signaling is bad. And in California, the virtue signaling is always going to be on the left. And this is where you actually get yourself into trouble, right? And you get into fiscal policy where you're over borrowing and the state becomes over leveraged, and it doesn't look good.
Yeah. Now, again, opposite side. So one of the state senators, Senator Anthony Portantino.
Portantino?
Jesus, dude. That's going to be a clip.
That has to be. Record skip.
Yeah. He had a good argument for it. He said of the 56 strikes in California over the past decade, only 2 had even lasted longer than 2 weeks.
I think that's an argument for Newsom's side.
Because it's not even that relevant?
Yeah. Well, like, okay, if they're not lasting that long, then it should be that much easier for the union funds to cover them.
Makes sense to me, man.
Yeah.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. Sorry, but we're on Newsom on this one.
Yeah. Again, the government doesn't have infinite money.
Yeah.
Okay. We are mostly liberal. We like liberal policies, but sanity must rule.
Yeah, sanity must prevail, and that's just not a good look.
No.
That's not a good look.
No.
I want to skip this one for a second, and
Okay.
I want to go to our next labor story.
Okay.
Because we have a lot of amazing news coming out of the labor movement. And dude, it makes me so happy.
Okay.
So this is very fluid. The United Auto Workers has made a lot of progress over the last 24 hours. So I'm going to give a little bit of the summary of the week we've had and then go on to what happened today, because we got big news today. So the UAW strike is rolling on. Anderson Economic Group has estimated that the automakers have lost $1.1 billion during the strike so far from additional facility costs, production costs, and loss of sales. In addition, automaker suppliers have lost $1.3 billion. Dealerships have lost $1.2 billion, bringing the whole amount of economic loss to $4 billion. So GM, Ford, Stellantis, is it worth it? Is it worth it? Is it worth paying your workers 20% less what they were making in 2008, only for you to lose $4 billion? Everyone who's watching this strike out there, don't you see that the value gets created when people go into work? The people who take showers after work are the ones who make the profits, not the ones who take the showers before work. These guys are the ones who allow to make these $4 billion, and without them, you have nothing. So get to the table and make the deal fast.
Keep
Clip.
rolling.
Okay.
Keep rolling.
General Motors and Ford are fighting back a little bit, but not really General Motors. So this is where the story gets fluid. Ford is going to be laying off 900 additional workers.
Okay.
And blaming the expansion of the strike. Mm-hmm. Obviously, Fain fights back. He's like, let's be clear. If the big three decide to lay people off who aren't on strike, that's them trying to put the squeeze on us. Record profits mean record contracts, all that. Love his stuff. Now, what is so interesting here is we're talking about this Gavin Newsom thing, right? Mm-hmm. We're talking about Gavin Newsom not expanding unemployment benefits to striking workers. Well, here is an example of a union that knows how to handle this. So far, this strike has cost UAW $14.3 million a week out of their $825 million strike fund. First, these guys don't need unemployment benefits. Second, this is amazing union organizing by the UAW.
Yeah.
The fact that they were able to assemble this war chest to be able to make their workers' lives better for decades to come is just going to be unbelievable. But there's progress here, guys, and it's actually really good progress. First, I want to start with Ford. On Tuesday, Ford said that it has reached a good compromise offer that included more than a 20% general wage increase with a double-digit increase in the first year. Now, combined with cost of living adjustments previously offered, this will bring the total wage increases closer to a little over 30%. Remember, initially, the UAW wants a 36 to 40% wage increase. It's looking like right now Ford is offering a 32, 31%. That's where Ford's at.
Okay.
So we're getting there, guys. We're really getting there.
Yeah. I mean, that's close to where I would expect it to end up.
Yeah.
I don't expect them to get all the way to the 40. They might get to the 35, and that would be incredible.
Now, I mean, now I think I think that the wage fight is done, and now they're moving on to the pensions.
Okay.
I think that if they can get to 32, 31, they're going to switch focus real quick and go hard on the retirement programs.
I see.
Right? But there's also been a lot of progress in regards to climate change. The UAW has met a fantastic agreement with General Motors. All of the EV battery plants in General Motors' supply chain will be able to collectively bargain in a concession he described as monumental for the union's objectives. He says, "We've been told for months that this is impossible. We've been told that the EV future must be a race to the bottom. We've called their bluff."
Ooh, interesting. We just had our conversation last week on whether or not it is a race to the bottom. I thought it would be. It's going to be, I don't know. We'll see. I'm very curious to see it's going to take years, right? This is going to be a transition that takes years. We're going to talk all about this in our deep dive today. But what kind of market share did these big three companies get versus a Tesla, versus a Rivian?
And I think I have a different opinion than you on this. You think that, I don't want to put words in your mouth here, but you do think Tesla currently has the advantage. And I agree with you there.
Yes.
Tesla definitely has the advantage right now. I think Tesla will fail to upscale. I think Tesla is really good at making software, and they're an awesome data company. I don't think they're that great at making cars.
Why?
I don't think I have heard enough feedback from, this is very anecdotal evidence.
Okay.
Feedback from car guys in my life who get in a Tesla and they feel like they're in a cardboard box. They feel like they're in a cheap car.
Okay.
That's how they feel when they get into a Tesla.
Interesting.
When you go into like, you know, a Porsche electric car or an Audi electric car, you're like, I'm in a spaceship. Okay. That's the vibe I've gotten.
Interesting. Because
I just don't think Tesla is a good automaker yet.
Okay. It is a competing force against them having market dominance. I do think the software dominance is part of feeling like a spaceship, and I will say that would play in Tesla's favor.
That's true.
I would also say that the market for the adopters of EVs, at least right now, I think Tesla Tesla's branding as far as reaching those people is very good. Yeah, right. It's very kind of on point. Although sometimes I do think Musk, being the character that he is, plays against that.
I think it's really shifted for him in the recent past. I think Musk he's gone from an icon of progress to a kind of weirdo. Exactly.
And I think most of the people who I would imagine buying Teslas are 30s, 40s-year-old lean liberal, right, who don't like Elon spouting off his bullshit on X.
Right. That's exactly it. Like, he's really just kind of shitting on his consumer base, which is like, why would he do that?
Yeah. I mean,
but you know what? Hold on. We have so much to talk about with EVs.
Sorry.
No. You're in the cool. I brought it up, but let's. I want to talk more about the union stuff because we literally have an hour and a half worth of content on EVs.
Yeah.
So the unions are popping off, guys. UAW, we talked about them. They're making progress. The Las Vegas Culinary Union is looking to strike, and they have already voted to authorize it. This is 53,000 culinary workers in Las Vegas, and they are opening up negotiations to MGM Resorts, Caesars Entertainment, and Wine Resorts, and 95% of the union has voted to authorize a strike and go on the picket line. The union leader of the Culinary Union has said it's a moment.
Oh my God, wait. This guy's name is Ted Papa George. That's fucking awesome.
That's an awesome name.
That's incredible.
That I hope. Oh, forget it. I was going to make a shitty joke.
Okay.
Yeah, don't worry about it. It's okay. So it's a moment, guys. This is what Ted Papa George has said. It's a moment. There's a moment right now. It's time for workers. They're ready to stand up, and they're ready to not be left behind. What does he look like?
Pretty normal. White guy.
Yeah, he looks normal. I was really expecting like a very wrinkly, short, fat guy.
Okay.
You know? Okay. Papa George.
I suppose.
Right? What would you think, Papa George?
Not necessarily wrinkly. I'm thinking like classic Italian, slicked back hair.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the suspenders on.
He's the penguin.
That's what I'm expecting. He's the penguin.
Yeah.
So Culinary Union authorizing going on strike if necessary. We got UAW kicking butt. Union elections are also rising and rising fast. They have been on the decline since about 2015. 2022 was actually one of the worst years for number of union elections, but 2023 has seen some massive changes, and I want to give us some props because we called out exactly this. We knew this was going to happen because we have seen 36 petitions for union elections since early September.
Wow.
What happened in early September, Ben? The CEMEX decision by the NLRB, which we covered in early September. No mainstream news covered it. None of the lefties on YouTube covered it. We covered it. So what was the CEMEX decision? The CEMEX decision ruled that if a company breaks the law in a way that warrants throwing out the election results, the board can order the company to recognize the union and start bargaining. Yeah. Well, this scared companies so much that we have seen 36 union petition elections in the last month.
Wow.
That's more than the entirety of 2022.
This is amazing.
That's amazing.
That's real.
That's real.
That's when it's not the politic bullshit, right? That's when you're talking about something that's actually making change in society.
That's not virtue signaling.
Yeah.
So when we say honestly, when we say go vote for Joe Biden because he appoints the right people, Joe Biden has just made it possible for the number of union elections that happened last year to happen in 1 month.
Yes, this has enormous ripple effects all over the economy. It brings up the wages at the bottom. Our median wages are going to keep going up and up because of this kind of activity.
It's absolutely unreal. When I saw this, I was shocked. I was like, holy shit, this is exactly what we were expecting to see from the decision.
Yeah.
And it didn't take long for it to even happen.
Not at all. Oh, that's fantastic.
Isn't that just beautiful?
Yeah, it's good to see, like, they've honed in on giving it just the right amount of stick, right? This is the right amount of incentive to say, we're not going to mess with unions. These union organizers can feel a little bit more courageous, right? And motivated to get out there because they know that even if they're struck down, the law is now on their side to have the union voted on anyways.
And they're supported. The unions feel supported by the federal government for the first time in a long time.
Yeah.
The unions actually feel like the president and the president's administration has their back, and it's because he does.
Mm-hmm.
Which awesome. I never thought I'd be saying about Joe Biden, but here we are, guys. It's a great day.
Yeah.
So let's move on to the funniest story of the week. You know what's so sad? It's been so many weeks since we've talked about our boy Ron DeSantis. And
it has.
You know why? I have no stories about Ron DeSantis on the list today. There's nothing to talk about with him.
Yeah.
He's dead, guys. It's over.
I'm kind of glad, though.
Yeah, I mean, I was sick of the Republican primary horse race shit.
It's so boring.
It's boring. No one else stands a chance. It's going to be Trump. We're wasting all the time. All these guys are just wasting their money.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. There's nothing interesting to talk about like, oh, what could happen? Like what levers do they need to pull? What kind of strategizing do they need to do? It's just like, Trump's going to take it. We can laugh at them, but also, do we want to waste 5 to 10 minutes on every show doing that?
No, I don't.
I'm kind of over it.
So Trump, we can waste some time on Trump because he's
the important one.
He's the important one, and his empire is collapsing. Recently, he has gone to trial, or there has been a decision on his fraud case coming out of New York. The Attorney General, Tish James, has alleged that Trump and his adult sons, through his companies and some of his business associates, fraudulently inflated Trump's net worth in order to obtain favorable terms from banks and insurance companies, saying, hey, my company is worth $100 million, or this property is worth $100 million to an insurance company, and then saying my property is worth $10 million to a tax collector, right? That's the fraud that he's caught up in. Mm-hmm. Well, Kevin Wallace, an attorney for the Attorney General, urged the judge in his opening statement to bar Trump, who rose to fame. Oh, whatever. That's irrelevant information. But they have found him guilty, guys. It's over. It's done.
Is the sentencing?
The sentencing
done?
Is where we're at now.
Okay.
So it's done. The judge has ruled that Donald Trump is guilty of fraud and has lost all of his licenses to practice business in the state of New York.
Wow.
Once sentencing is complete, he might have to sell off some of his properties, including Trump Tower in New York City. It might have to go.
Wow. Can
you believe that? The empire is collapsing around him, and he's furious.
Yeah.
He's furious.
Can he just sell it to Kushner?
That's funny, but I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think it can be in the family.
I have to say, okay, really, really quick anecdote. I went to Manhattan for 2 weeks recently, and I had a gym there that I was going to every day. And on my walk, there's a building called the Puck Building. And it's this really nice red brick building. And it's Puck from maybe Huckleberry Finn. Let me try to find the reference. Because there are these two small gold statues of Puck from Midsummer's Night's Dream. And I was curious. I'm like, this is a really nice building. Who owns it? And I found out that Kushner bought it a few years ago.
No way.
Yeah, and he turned the top of them into penthouses. I just thought it was interesting because we've been so into politics. Anyways, sorry.
No, you're good. So Trump has been found guilty. Now, he is so mad. Trump has attacked the judge, saying that he should be disbarred, that he's a drunk,
of course,
that he's insane.
Yeah.
He has attacked the judge clerk, saying that she's sleeping with Chuck Schumer, which I don't know where that comes from, but that's hilarious. And so much more that I couldn't even name. So the judge responded and put a gag order on him, saying that he's not allowed to attack anyone in the courtroom, any of his associates, any of his employees. He's not allowed to do that.
That's amazing.
Trump is not doing himself any favors, as he also threatened Mark Miller, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He said that He said that Mark Milley should face the death penalty for treason.
Oh.
Which is insane because Mark Milley is a witness to one of Trump's criminal cases. So he threatened one of his potential witnesses.
The prosecution's witnesses.
With death?
Oh, wow.
I mean...
Do you think the hammer comes down on this soon? No?
No, I don't. I think they're
too scared.
We talked about this. If Trump goes to jail before he's convicted, it's not good. It's not a good look.
No.
It's just not. So, point is, he's getting the gag order. What are you thinking?
I just think it sucks because any other person should be sent to jail.
Yeah.
Right?
He threatened a witness.
Yeah. With death.
With death.
Yeah, it's... and I don't like that they have to not treat him equally to get a fair trial.
It's so messed up because he's framed this as it's not a fair trial. There's a two-tier justice system. And it's like, yeah, one for me and not for thee. Like, look in the mirror, bro. You're the one who's getting the sweetheart deal. You threatened one of your witnesses with death and you're not going to jail for it. Anyone else would be going to jail for it, but not you because, you got your orange face and your golden toilet. Yeah. It's just ridiculous.
And you were elected to the highest office in the country.
Oh, that too. I forgot about that.
Yeah, unfortunately.
So now this trial that he's in right now for this fraud case is really all about determining the penalty. So Tish James is pushing for $250 million worth of payment. $250 million.
Wow.
That would destroy him.
That would.
That would actually end him.
Bankruptcy,
I think that would actually bankrupt the man.
Yeah.
I really believe that.
Yeah. I mean, which he's gone through before and he'll be fine. Like, to be clear, like his brand is valuable enough that he will be fine, but it'll really suck for him.
And Trump is also going off about how mad he is. And he's like, why didn't I get a jury trial? Why did this sentencing only come from the judge himself? Okay, well, it turns out that your stupid lawyer didn't check the box asking for a jury trial.
Really?
She checked the wrong box.
Really?
It's been reported I didn't believe it at first, and I really wanted to give this lawyer the benefit of the doubt that this wasn't true. But every single reporting agency that I've found has shown document of her checking the wrong box, saying trial without jury.
Wow.
So Trump chose it. It's his legal team who chose this.
Yeah, well, I wonder if it was a mistake or if it was part of the strategy beforehand and now he's turning around and he's like, this is an opportunity to throw someone else under the bus.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe, who knows? But it's just insane that he's able to just turn everything on its head like that.
He's the best at that, though, man.
He's the man at
it. There was a time when Milley was his chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff or whatever it was. Mm-hmm. And he was like, Milley's a great general. He's going to do the best for me. And now he's threatening him with death.
It's insane.
Yeah.
One of the big things Trump's is really angry about is that the assessment of his Mar-a-Lago property. So he thinks that Mar-a-Lago should be worth $1 billion or like I think it was $760 million or something. The judge has said that it's worth $18 million. And Trump freaks out. He's like, how could you say Mar-a-Lago is worth $18 million? How could you say that? It's the best in the world. I could get someone to buy it for $1 billion, maybe even $1.5 billion. And then the judge said on Monday that his ruling did not specify the Mar-a-Lago value of $18 million, but he was only citing Palm Beach tax records.
That makes sense. Because honestly,
But that's a part of the fraud. Because the tax record shows it's only $18 million.
Okay.
But then it's assessed, or not assessed, it's appraised at $760 billion.
See, this is where I'm gonna play the devil advocate a little bit. Because I think he could sell Mar-a-Lago for a lot.
Yes.
Because again, it's attached to his brand.
Yes.
And so now there is historical significance. There's something more to it than just the value of the property.
That is true.
Yeah.
That is true.
So I'm going to put that out there.
That makes sense. That's fair.
But 18 million to 1 billion?
No.
That I'm not so sure about.
And in addition to this, he also has been caught lying about the size of his apartments on records.
Yeah.
He said that some of his apartments are 30,000 square feet when it was actually only like around 15,000 square feet. And he said that his apartment was the most expensive apartment in New York City history.
Yeah.
Which it isn't. Like, it just is not that. That's not what it is.
Yeah.
So he's just lying all the way up and down. It's fraud through and through. And his business empire is going to collapse because of it. And I love it.
I have to say that this is interesting to me because of how it plays into the image of Trump.
So,
right? Because people like Trump, and they say this because he's a fighter, right? And they like that he does this kind of scummy stuff because it shows that he's a strategist and he's trying to take every avenue he can to better his own situation and to win on his behalf. But then he loses. And he keeps losing, right? He gets indicted. He gets convicted in the E. Jean Carroll trial. He gets convicted in this trial.
he loses elections.
His party loses elections because of him. And yet, when he loses, it plays into the idea that Trump is like us, right? It's like, oh, I see the pictures of him leaving all these secret documents in the bathroom. Well, I'm messy and careless sometimes, and I would totally do that too, right? He loses, and then he becomes more relatable. He loses, and he declares bankruptcy, and he gets asked about it in the initial presidential debate with Hillary Clinton, and he says, of course I used some of these tax laws to keep more of my money when I filed for bankruptcy, just like all of Hillary's donors did, right? He finds ways to turn his losses into character wins somehow for his audience. And I feel like this is going to keep playing right into that. And he's going to blame the judge, and he's going to find certain arguments that people who already like him will believe when he says that Mar-a-Lago is worth way more. And it's just all going to elevate. It all still is according to plan for him.
I can't agree with you more. And it's scary to me to see his poll numbers continue to rise against Joe Biden. All of these criminal trials, it's at a backdrop of him leading Joe Biden at the national average. It's crazy to me.
Yeah. I don't really worry about polls, but that's just me.
No, and look, we talked about this too. We've covered special elections, and the special elections show that Democrats are actually performing very well. And I'm not too worried about the polls either in some regard. But they say something.
Probably.
Right? They say something, and it's crazy to me because what it tells me is some people are still thinking about it because Joe Biden is still so unappealing at the moment.
Do you think so?
I think so. I think the polls tell me that people are still thinking about it.
Okay.
And their minds aren't made up. I think at the end of the day, they'll land on Biden if it comes to it. But I think that like a lot of percentage of the voting base is even convinced that Joe Biden isn't going to run again, even though he's currently in the middle of a re-election campaign.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of that too.
Right.
Which is kind of wild.
Yeah. Okay. So that's Trump being a fucking idiot and just getting screwed over in every way. All right. Let's start off with the anti-Ukrainian movements that are popping up abroad and popping up at home. So first thing I want to talk about is what's going on in Poland. Poland has a very big election coming up. October 15th, the Polish elections are coming, and this is a big moment where a lot of opposition parties have coalesced into form one coalition called the Civic Coalition that is trying really hard to oust the current prime minister, who is under the Law and Justice Party. The Law and Justice Party has won the 2015 elections, and they've won the 2019 elections. Now, the Law and Justice Party has been responsible for a total ban on abortion, intense anti-immigrant stances, and was against the EU. They're a very Eurosceptic party. Mm-hmm. They've also pushed judicial reforms that have arguably violated EU law. The courts in Poland are more stacked than what they are in the United States. The equivalent of the Supreme Court in Poland is currently made up by 10 appointed people, all of which have been appointed by the Law and Justice Party. How does that sound? Yeah, exactly. So the EU is not happy about that.
Yeah, this is clearly a democracy that's backsliding into something that's not a democracy.
Exactly. So now the Civic Coalition is being led by a man named Donald Tusk. He was the prime minister who started in 2017. From 2007 to 2014, and he has been fairly active in the EU since. So this is a very, common story of pro-EU liberal party, anti-EU illiberal party. Now, in addition to this, there are harder right-wing parties and then harder left-wing parties also in these elections. We have the hard right party, the Confederation Liberty and Independence Party, the Center Party, which is a third-way political alliance party, and then the hard left is the New Left Party. Now, what I think is very important to understand, like, what this election means in Poland is the future of Ukraine. Right. And that's what I want to talk, like all of these elections that we're going to talk about and the at-home politics here in America. How does this affect what's going on in Ukraine? How is this going to affect the fighting? Well, Poland has been the largest acceptor of Ukraine refugees. They have been one of the, if not the largest, arms funders in Europe. As percentage of GDP, Poland gives a ton of money as percent of their GDP. If I'm reading this chart right, it looks like Poland has given about almost 0.8%, 0.7% of their GDP to Ukraine with the war effort so far. So they have been a very big ally. They have also helped gotten jets to Ukraine, but that all looks like it's changing. The current government is now pulling back off their commitments. And the current prime minister has suggested that Poland was done sending weapons to Ukraine because Poland needs to focus on its own defenses. Mm-hmm. Now, Poland has been boosting up their military funding over the last couple of years since the Ukrainian invasion. And now they're reluctant to give any of that stuff away. And what this means for Ukraine is Ukraine needs to become independent because Poland is no longer going to be a good and helpful ally. Mm-hmm. If the elections go this certain way, right? October 15th, things could change. Mm-hmm. But, it's not good that there is this animosity that's growing between Ukraine and Poland.
Yeah. Well, of course, it's a much easier sell to say we need to keep our military capacity at home, within our country, in our hands, because you can even kind of frame it like, look at what just happened to Ukraine. We need to make sure that we're ready if someone comes knocking on our door.
Exactly. And the EU is helping Ukraine, not just through military means, but also through economic reforms of the European Union. Mm-hmm. This is against the interests of Poland. Animosity is growing because the European Union is trying to allow Ukrainian grain into the European market, which Hungary, Poland, and Slovakia are massive grain suppliers to the European Union. And with this Ukrainian grain now going into Europe, it undercuts the small business classes of these countries, which is a massive voting bloc of the current majorities.
Totally.
So that is a huge issue for the working class people of these countries who view this as a materialist perspective, as we're doing too much for Ukraine now, it's hurting my pocketbook too much, and you want to send all of our guns over there, it's too much for me, I'm out.
Yeah, and it's tough because Ukraine needs to get its grain out, and it can't get it out via the Black Sea anymore because Russia's taking control of those ports. So it's looking around, it's like we need to ship our grain out, even though they can do it at much lower capacity because you can move grain way less via rail than you can via the water. Mm-hmm. They need to get as much out as they can so they have some economic production coming into the country. But if you're surrounded by other countries, which of course makes sense geographically, right? Like if there's fertile ground for growing grain in Ukraine, then there's going to be that same type of soil and environment in these surrounding countries. But there's no real easy way to say, we don't even need you to take the grain, Poland. It's fine if this grain gets further west into Germany or Spain or France or Great Britain. But as soon as it comes into Poland, it's still hitting the Polish market and it's still endangering the profits of those local growers.
Yeah, exactly. And so but what's scary is even if the opposition wins, even if they get into power, we already talked about the Supreme Court. And so it's not called the Supreme Court in Poland, it's called the Constitutional Tribunal. And it has 15 members, not 10. But like I said, all 15 of those members were appointed by the Law and Justice Party.
It's crazy.
So that's a huge roadblock to any type of legislation, right? Well, on top of that, the president of Poland is currently a member of this Law and Justice Party. So they have a president and a prime minister, and the president can veto any legislation passed by this, and they need 60% to overturn that. So it's not even like any new legislation will be very possible at all.
No.
So the only thing they can really do is staff the current government bureaucracies with, more liberal people, and then hope that they're able to make better decisions with regards to Ukraine and Europe. But they can't really pass any new meaningful legislation, which is, it's almost like this election is like a midterm in the United States.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah, it's hard. It's like the best case scenario is like a new president or prime minister. I don't know which it is.
Yeah, no. The best case scenario is to get a new president, but that's like for another 2 years.
Okay.
Yes.
So they can basically only block further pushes to the right.
Yes.
Rather than actually push anything to the left.
That's basically what this is going to be.
Okay.
Yeah. And on top of this, on top of just the general legislative elections, the Law and Justice Party also put 4 ballot measures on the ballot as well. The 4 ballot measures are this: do you support the sale of state enterprises to private companies? I didn't get the chance to look up who is on what side of that, but I assume Law and Justice is a no on that, pretty hardcore. Do you support raising the retirement age? Do you support bringing in more immigrants? What's so funny is how they worded the question on the ballot.
Oh my God, it's crazy.
You ready for this? This is how it's worded on the Polish ballot. Do you support the reception of thousands of illegal immigrants from the Middle East and Africa in accordance with the forced relocation mechanism imposed by the European bureaucracy?
Could the negative undertones be any more obvious?
The answer is no. That is just so brutally dishonest. That's insane.
That's literally what the professor in stats puts up as the example of like what not to put on your survey.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just so funny. And then the 4th question, which I can't believe is getting asked: do you support removing the border with Belarus? I don't even know what that means.
I don't understand that, because tensions. Last time I looked at Poland and Belarus, like a couple months ago, tensions were rising at the border.
Yeah.
Like Belarus was doing a bunch of military training exercises right on the border. And we've talked before about in Ukraine, like Russia's impetus for invading Ukraine being that they want to push their influence far enough that they plug the geographical gaps that other countries might take to come into their country and invade. Belarus obviously is just an extension of Russia. We've talked about how 1 or 2, I don't remember, of those gaps are in Poland. Mm-hmm. So it makes all the sense in the world that Belarus might invade Russia. So I thought it was ridiculous when I read this question.
I know.
It's absolutely absurd.
I think this goes back to there was a lot of refugees that got their way into Belarus and then got into Poland through the Belarus-Polish border.
Okay.
So I think that they are going to try to really militarize the border with Belarus.
Okay, so
in response to this ballot.
Because I think, okay, so you're hoping that when they say, do you support removing the border with Belarus, everyone's going to answer like, hell no, of course not.
That's what the answer is going to be.
So we need to close it that much tighter.
Yes. That's what I think is going to be going on.
That makes sense. I mean, that's such a ridiculous, like, ask any member of any country, do you support removing the border with Canada? Well, I'm not really afraid of Canada. I like Canada, but no, I don't want to remove the border.
It's like, what?
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I know. What a stupid question. Okay, so that's Poland. So now Ukraine is losing Poland. Okay, Ukraine is losing access to the Polish military assistance. Okay, Now Slovakia. Might be one of the only times we talk about Slovakia on the show, maybe. But here we go. Slovakia. Slovakia is also seeing a rightward shift as well, but it looks like extremely different from any other rightward trend that I've seen in any of the other European countries. It's very interesting. When the election results were coming out, the exit polls indicated that the Progressive Party, the PS Party, was going to win. And I was all shocked. I was like, oh, nice. All right, good job. These Progressive Party, very pro-EU, very liberal, not really socialist at all, actually fairly liberal on economic stuff, not socialist, and very pro-Ukraine. So I was like, all right, nice. 6 hours later, all the exit polls were wrong. And turns out that the Social Democrats won re-election. Okay, Social Democrats won re-election. That sounds great. I don't know a lot about Slovakian politics. Sounds good to me. Psych, dude. The Social Democratic Party of Slovakia have taken an intense rightward shift in recent years, and the party now focuses more on social conservatism, nationalism, Euroscepticism, and anti-LGBTQ rhetoric. This is such a departure from the majority of social democratic parties in Europe and like the progressive wing of the Democratic Party here in America, it's shocking to me.
Yes, it is very different. I mean, we've talked about and we've known that there are kind of two different spectra here on the social and political and economic belief systems, right? There's economic liberalism versus economic conservatism, where economic liberalism tends to desire more government intervention and control of markets, or like more rulemaking to make sure they don't get completely out of whack, versus conservatism is just like, let them run free. And then there's social liberalism, which is, and I think like thinking about libertarians is a good thing on this. Libertarians are totally economically conservative or free market, but they also are usually extremely socially liberal. Like, yeah, totally. Gay marriage, I'm down with that. Trans rights, I'm down with that, right? Like, no discrimination, I'm down with that. So this is weird because you rarely see an economically liberal and socially conservative party.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. It's not a frequent coalition.
No.
So now, while this party is continuing the creation and expansion of a normal left-wing welfare state, as you would expect, they are now shifting on the EU completely, as we've stated, and also very much on Ukraine. But now let's talk about the Progressive Party that I alluded to earlier. The leading opposition, the new, more recently formed Progressive Party, this party only came up 4 or 5 years ago. So the fact they're already polling in second place at a national election is very impressive. They're fairly neoliberal in its economics, right? Mm-hmm. And we did a deep dive on neoliberalism. I highly recommend you watch it because it doesn't mean what you think it means. But it's more globalist in nature and very pro-EU. It's much better on social issues, and was leading in the exit polls, like I said, but somehow they ended up losing. This is the first time that the Progressive Party has actually made it into the national parliament. They've gone from 0 seats to 32 in their first election.
Wow.
So you can see a clamor for this more socially liberal aspect represented in government, but it goes even further than that, because recently, this year, there has been a split amongst the Social Democrats. This year, there has been a new Social Democratic Party formed in opposition to the more entrenched Social Democratic Party called Halas. And this Halas party split with the original Social Democrats due to the fact that they are not socially progressive and they're not pro-EU. And Halas is that social democratic alternative, saying we want a large welfare state, yeah, but we're not willing to throw LGBTQ people and Ukraine and Europe aside to achieve it. Yeah. We're not willing to do that. And so I think Halas and the Progressive Party will be a strong opposition to this rightward shift moving forward. But that means that the Social Democrats are going to have to find new friends to make a governing coalition with. And who are those friends going to be? So unfortunately, one of them that I think they will most definitely join with is the Slovak National Party. To be honest with you, I'm not going to hide it. These are the bad guys all around. Okay, they were a part of a governing coalition, formed a governing coalition with the Social Democrats back in 2006, and these guys are hardcore libertarian, anti-state Eurosceptic, but were formed by neo-Nazis in the 80s. So that libertarian thing, that means economically libertarian. That does not mean socially liberal, like Ben just said. That is like a very strict sell off all public entities to the market.
Interesting, because that's not how I would really describe like Nazism or fascism either. Because fascism usually is like, let's integrate all of the companies with the state to expand state control, to expand authoritarian control of a single leader.
Well, I'll tell you, the Nazi Party actually had a massive increase in privatizations during their reign. The Nazi Party sold off a ton of their assets with the condition that they would be party loyalty in the corporate boards.
Yes.
Right?
Okay.
So I don't know the Slovak National Party's idea of libertarianism.
Sure.
I imagine that's what they're talking about.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
So even if it's not technical government control, it's government control effectively.
I would like to say it's party owned.
Yeah. Okay.
Right? Not state owned, but party owned. And there's a massive difference to that.
Ooh. That just reminds me of, it sounds like with Poland, I feel like we didn't super talk about, we talked about the capture of the Supreme Court. We didn't talk that much about the capture of the media.
Oh, I didn't even
which
talk
is
about the media.
part of the campaign of the Law and Justice Party.
Yeah, so what's going on with the media in Poland?
They're trying. Part of their platform is to essentially make the public news channels, the public media channels, to be single party channels, to be completely partisan. That is where I think it relates to what we're talking about.
Yes. And we've seen in America what happens when we have news stations that go down the party line route. Yeah. And it's an absolute nightmare.
It's a nightmare, but I must say we're almost luckier in this case because it's not like the ruling party in government kind of controls all of the information that's going out.
True.
So even though it's bad to have two very partisan media sources, that's still way, way better than one really partisan media source.
Very true. And what if they're able to actually capture, the media and be able to push their party's narrative everywhere up and down, it's over.
It's over.
It's done. We always talk about
everything.
Yeah, the media has all the power.
Yeah.
And so now Slovakia has gone down this road. We have Slovakia's gone down this road. We have Poland going down this road. Now what's happening to America? Unfortunately, it looks like America is going down the same road as well.
I've been champing at the bit to bring up how every example you're talking about, I'm like, oh, well, it sounds like what's happening here.
Exactly.
But I wanted to wait till.
So here we go. We have the U.S. government funding fight that's been going on. Whew. So luckily, the United States Congress has passed a continuing resolution for 45 days that will appropriate all the money from the year 2023 up until year 2020 in 45 days.
We'll get there. We'll talk more about that later.
We'll go much further in depth on all that, but the point is that it passed 335 to 91, and this is a short-term funding bill. It passed with 209 Democrats, 126 Republicans, and 91 Republicans voting no. One Democrat voted no. The Democrat voted no because there was no Ukraine funding in this continuing resolution. The 90 Republicans voted no because it gave too many kids access to education. So the Senate, led by Mitch McConnell, or the Senate Republicans led by Mitch McConnell, tried to push for a bill that would have Ukraine funding in it. And at the end of the Senate conference, the Republicans said no. They said, do not send that bill to the House. It will fail. It will not go through. It will not work. McCarthy cannot get his ducks in a row to get Ukraine funding. Now, this is insanity to me because McConnell used to be the ringleader, the whip. He used to be every part of the governing apparatus of the Republican caucus. And now here he is. He's the dog getting wagged by the tail.
Totally. This tail is solid. I mean, I don't want to go too much into it because we're going to get there. Mm-hmm. But what it means for Ukraine is they have to lose a little bit of trust in the funding and the support they get from us.
Oh yeah, I mean they're not going to be reliant. They cannot be. I'll say this: they cannot be reliant on the United States. So with McConnell not being able to whip the Republican caucus into accepting Ukraine funding, it shows that not just the Republican Party is failing to support Ukraine. The general American populace is souring on it too. And so the U.S. population is shifting. And this is something Ukraine is going to have to take into account. Overall, this is from a CBS News poll last Sunday, 55% say the United States Congress should not authorize any additional funding to support Ukraine versus 45% that say Congress should authorize new funding. 51% say that the United States has already done enough, and 48% says it should do more.
It makes, again, all the sense in the world. I just talked about this with Poland. It's just so much easier to sell. We have our own problems, and we need to keep the money here to solve those problems. And it's a much more complex, even if true and important argument to say, it is in our interests to fund the war effort that is happening over there. That the destabilization that would occur by us allowing a country to just trod over the border of another country kind of unprovoked is so detrimental to our own economic interests to our own security interests.
Yeah, and our ideological interests.
Yeah.
We are believers of democracy, of liberalism, and we cannot let one fall to this illiberal democracy that is expanding from Russia inward. And we were talking about off screen that this illiberal democracy is being flourished even at home in Central and Eastern Europe as well.
Yes.
Under Viktor Orban in Hungary, he has really ignited this new political ideology that I like to call illiberal democracy, where yes, people still vote, but your natural enlightenment values are being stripped away from you. Your fundamental human rights are being stripped away.
Yes.
And that's what's going on in Hungary. That's what looks like it's going on in Poland and all the rest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Now, do you want to say anything more on that? Or do you want to shift to the Ukraine funding specifically?
Let's go on to Ukraine funding. It might come back up, but let's move on for now.
Okay. So I want to talk about who funds Ukraine the most. So European Union institutions fund Ukraine the most when it comes to financial assistance and humanitarian assistance. Financial assistance, the European Union has sent over $80 billion over to Ukraine. Now, financial assistance is very a hot topic, and we're going to have to get to that because I have issues with our financial assistance to Ukraine. I think it's being misused. And I think we're going to need to talk about that. But the United States has given so far around $47 billion with military aid, and then an additional $30 billion of financial assistance. Drops down very quick to Germany having like $20 billion, United Kingdom having 15, down, 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 and down. But this doesn't give a really good picture of who's giving the most to Ukraine on what they are able to give. So let's do this chart again by percent of GDP that's being given to Ukraine. Norway is giving 1.6% of its GDP to Ukraine. Lithuania, 1.25%. Estonia, over 1.25%. Latvia, Denmark, Poland is giving 0.75% of its entire GDP to Ukraine at the moment. Right under Poland, Slovakia, 0.65% of its GDP. This is massive amounts of money for these countries. And you can see it's the Eastern Bloc. It's the countries who are on the front line against Russia who have been funding the war the most as compared to everyone else.
Which makes a lot of intuitive sense.
Of course.
Right? Like, let's make sure that they can do the best they can, so hopefully we don't have to join this fight.
Exactly. And the United States is down near 0.3%.
Yeah.
Right? So that also puts us to line of perspective. We say like, oh, the United States is contributing the most military. Yeah, it's also because we have the largest economy in the world, right? So it makes sense that we're contributing the most.
We can.
Because we have the most to contribute. That makes perfect sense. Mm-hmm. Per capita and per percentage of GDP, it's the Eastern Bloc really holding up this defense. And if the unity in the Eastern Bloc crumbles with the nationalist movements in Hungary, Poland, Slovakia, we're going to have a lot of problems with European solidarity going forward.
Yes. My worry with that would be, like, who can Russia win over?
Right.
Especially if Russia's standing at your doorstep being like, you can join us and not get invaded, or we can walk in and start shooting you and your women and children.
Right. And Hungary, I don't think is very far away.
No.
You know?
No. I mean, Hungary with Orban, like, they don't really have loyalty to ideals, right? They're just, especially Orban himself, he's just loyal to his own stay in power. So if Russia's able to offer that.
No, I mean, truly, the Hungarian ideology at the moment is nationalism. End of story.
Exactly.
Right? There's nothing else. So let's break into a little further into the United States funding specifically. So we have $46.6 billion of total military aid, $23.5 billion for weapons and equipment, $18 billion for security assistance, $5 billion for loans for weapons, and then we have this $26 billion for financial assistance. We have $4 billion also for humanitarian, but that's not the most important part here. This financial, 34% of the money we give is for budgetary aid through the Economic Support Fund, loans, and other financial support. This is where the American people feel like we're getting screwed. And there is something to say about that, because even Biden is admitting behind closed doors that where this financial aid goes is a problem. So a leaked sensitive memo from the United States intelligence agencies contends that if corruption is not rooted out in Ukraine, Western support will slip, and it will slip fast, and sees this as the number one threat to Ukraine's survival.
Wow.
They are already seeing the writing on the wall that the United States public is now thinking that Ukraine is too corrupt to accept this money, put it in the right places. They don't like seeing the headlines that this financial aid is going to shore up pension funds. I don't know if I have a problem with pension funds getting shored up, because I think that, is important for their national security and economy. But if you can't give us a direct breakdown of what our financial assistance is doing for you, why the hell should we give you any financial money? We should only be giving you guns and bullets at that point. If you're not going to tell us where the money is going and why you're putting it into these places, I'm not giving you anything, right?
Yeah.
So the Biden administration is in this really difficult position because it doesn't want to push too hard on Ukraine, because if it publicly pushes too hard on Ukraine to get their stuff in order, Republicans can jump on that and then expose that in the national media and then corral public opinion to say, look, even Joe Biden is admitting that Ukraine is too corrupt to give us any money. Stop giving money to Ukraine. So he can't even have this public debate because of how optically terrible it'll look for the Biden administration. So now Biden is working behind the scenes to do what he can to make this right. He has said that future economic aid may be conditioned on reforms to tackle corruption to make Ukraine more attractive for private investment. This is not being considered for military aid. So for military aid, the funding is guaranteed. For the financial assistance, Biden is saying, you get your shit in order, otherwise we're taking your money away from you, and we're not going to help you financially anymore. In response to this, Zelensky has fired numerous top defense officials and is really following a lot of US and EU advice because it knows it needs the support more than anything.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, this is the right way, in my opinion, for the US and the EU to wield their power, right? You need to make sure that the country is being run the right way. On, I think, our last episode, you were talking about how it kind of leaves, maybe it was 2 episodes, a sour taste in your mouth that the US is considering helping out Saudi Arabia with the defense pact, right? And trying to stoke better relations between Saudi Arabia and Israel, because both of those countries rest on extremely illiberal laurels. The right way to do it is to use your influence to push them in a more liberal direction, into a better way of governance. And so that's what Biden's trying to do here.
Yeah, and one of the things I really like is that the United States is helping the Ukrainian government building out an accounting chamber so that the U.S. can track where the money goes exactly. So a specific accounting agency of where all this money is going, that would be massively helpful to ease public opinion, ease my mind of someone who's massively pro-funding Ukraine. Listen, if I'm having doubts of giving financial assistance to Ukraine, we have a problem.
Yeah.
Right?
Totally.
And so I want this accounting thing to be done. There are also some things that the Biden administration is demanding that I don't like.
Okay.
And I think it's very neoliberal.
Okay.
Not liberal, capital L, neoliberal. Very free market, very pro-capitalist. And I think it's a little bit of an issue. Okay. So the Biden administration really wants to reduce the state's role in the banking sector. Specifically this bank called Alpha Bank, and return Alpha Bank to private ownership. So I looked a little bit into this because on principle, I'm not against nationalizing banks during wartime. That's not something I'm initially against. I don't have a problem with the government making sure that financial incentives are lined up correctly through the banking apparatus. But Alpha Bank used to be a Russian-owned bank. When the war started, Ukraine nationalized this Russian-owned bank. Again, I'm not intrinsically against this. After the 2009 recession, the United Kingdom government bought a lot of common voting shares of banks and elected members to the board of directors of these banks specifically to change the banking policies to make them more conducive with the government's policy of getting the country out of recession. It increased lending and lowered compensation, doing a bit to help the economy, right?
Interesting.
So I'm not against this in times of danger. And with the track record of United States reaping colonial benefits out of other countries during their times of stress, I don't really like the idea of the United States going in and dictating economic policy to Ukraine. I don't really like that.
Okay. Did you read anything about why? Like, what is the administration saying as a reason? How are they justifying this?
So it does make good sense. What bank would want to open up Ukraine if it thinks it could be nationalized?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's the general argument against nationalization.
It's the general argument.
Right.
Why would Chase Bank ever want to expand over into Ukraine if during a weird time, Ukraine can just say, no, you know what? I'm taking over your bank.
Yeah, but
Why would Ukraine want to do that?
That is a good reason, but is it a good reason to explain why it is in the U.S.'s interest? Is it, I mean, circuitously, you could look at it as if you have this finance industry that is doing more for your economy, that would mean that it's less burdensome for us to support your economy.
That's where I think they're coming from.
But that's like I don't know, that's a reach.
I think it's a reach too, but I also think there is something ideological about this.
Okay.
I do think the United States is ideologically against the nationalization of banks, period.
Okay.
And I do think they don't like that a country they're propping up has nationalized a massive corporation.
Sure.
I don't think they like that.
Yeah, I do. I get that, but I also think, I don't know, maybe this is the neoliberal in me, that a privatized alpha bank might be able to reap in more profits during wartime that could then be used in the country's GDP to keep it afloat a little bit more than a nationalized bank would. Maybe it's a little bit more willing to take risks. I mean, generally, we don't like financialization too much. But this seems like a time where if you can play the numbers game with money a little bit better, it could be really helpful. Truly.
If the state is able to utilize those resources effectively, right? If the state is able to tax the profits made by the bank well, and be able to utilize the increase in GDP to the state's capacity.
Yes, because if not, it's the same problem as the corruption, right?
Yes.
It's just the money is being siphoned up into a group that needs it less than the rest of the country.
Right. So that's the issues and the pros about privatization. I think it's all about trying to get more private capital into Ukraine.
Okay.
And it's just really hard to convince international companies to go into a country that can nationalize businesses.
True.
There's no reason for them to do it.
Yeah.
And it's one of the issues I have with a more aggressive state-orientated socialism, because I think that problem is ubiquitous of all social movements that will ever happen. All social revolutions will actually come to that problem where turns out we actually need the people who have the capital to be here. It does make me think that the United States is in a very interesting and beautiful position to have social revolution because it has all the capital already here.
Yeah.
Right?
Totally.
Whereas these other imperial adjacent nations like Ukraine, they're very reliant on international capital to keep their lights on.
Exactly. Our market is too important for these companies to leave.
Exactly. Awesome tangent. But so this is where we're at, guys. Poland says that they're going to pull all military funding. I don't really buy it, but that's what they're running with on the election. Slovakia, heavy anti-EU, heavy anti-Ukraine stances. The Republican Party of the United States, firmly against giving any more money to Ukraine, and the United States population is anti-Ukraine. Now, anti-Ukraine by like 10 points.
Yes.
Which sucks,
a
dude.
little bit more anti-Ukraine.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
It just breaks my heart because it used to be such a bipartisan hoorah, democracy.
Yeah, it is. I mean, the policeman of the world rhetoric is always hard to sell. Yeah, and we honestly have kind of gotten lucky because we're in such an obvious good guy, bad guy situation right now.
True.
Right? That's the only reason we had such support for this in the first place. But I think
if this was Saudi Arabia getting invaded by Iran, would I be so gung-ho about giving weapons to the defending nation? I don't really think so.
No, of course not. Of course, and I don't think you should be.
Right.
I think it's good to be ideologically driven on these things.
Yeah.
But of course, like the media takes some time. You've got your Fox News and specific, because this is really like, I think the Times put out an article today about how this is the benchmark test. This is the litmus test of the Republican Party right now. It's like whether you're for Ukraine aid or against Ukraine aid, it kind of defines whether you're a MAGA Republican or a more quote unquote moderate Republican. So you have these more conservative networks like Fox News, like OAN, like anything else that's even further to the right of that are planting these ideas more and more, and who are already spouting this rhetoric of like, our country is in shambles.
Right.
We are destroyed. We're in terrible shape right now. How can we justify sending money overseas when we have all of these problems of our own?
And it's crazy to me because it's literally only 0.3% of our GDP.
Yeah.
I see people on Twitter and like raging against sending money to Ukraine. They're like, oh my God, can you believe how much money we're giving? And then someone in the comments is like, how much money do you think we've given? And they're like 10% of GDP at least. It's like, how cognitively dissonant, how unattached from reality must you be to think we've given 10% of our GDP to Ukraine when it's actually 0.3%.
This is the problem with just honestly just having a big population. You've talked to me about how people don't understand per capita in the comments.
They don't. You guys got to do better. You guys don't understand what per capita means, and it drives me insane.
Well, the issue is like just any person that reads 50 billion, like, wow, that's a lot of money. And wow, I would be an idiot to think that that's not a lot of money. Of course, 50 billion is a lot of money.
Yeah.
But it just happens to actually not be.
It's just actually not a lot of money. No. I don't know what to tell you guys.
Yeah. There's just that much money.
But again, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that there isn't a problem with where the money is going with the financial assistance. I want to see better regulations with regards to that. But I'm not going to stop sending them bullets because of it.
No.
No, that's not even on the table for me.
No.